anything, God forbid, would happen to my husband, that I would be able to provide for our kids.
I'm Eric with Leadership Development. If you're like me, you tend to ask the questions, why am I struggling to build fortitude? Why am I struggling to find resiliency? If we determine that fortitude is the strength of the castle, then resiliency is the ability to quickly rebuild it and bring back those protective layers. We're trying to find that magic piece that makes it happen. Maybe it's not one thing, maybe it's just us exploring how other people do it. Today we're going to talk with Jenni, who had to go through that journey, who had to build fortitude, find resiliency, to become a freelance writer, and to help thousands of people on their journey as well. We are here with Jenni Sisson, who's a freelance writer, freelance editor, and also hosts Mama's Money Map, which is a podcast talking about how they can find financial independence in an early age. What was the moment, that aha moment, that made you realize that you needed to do something to start building your pathway to what you're doing right now?
Well, the aha moment happened before I actually took action. So there was a time delay there, but I had a really good friend, his name's Matt. We were friends, I think we met in the 6th grade, and we were friends like all through high school. He took me on my first date, and he married a good mutual friend of ours right after high school. And when we were both about 26, he was killed, unfortunately, in a motorcycle accident, leaving his wife, who's also my good friend, a widow, stay-at-home mom with 3 kids. And I remember going to his funeral, and I remember the week after I was at his funeral, I also got in a car crash. I flipped my husband's truck upside down. He's still slightly bitter about that, for which I can't blame him. But I walked away with no scratches. I didn't even get whiplash. I don't know how. But it was kind of that moment, that juxtaposition between my car crash and Matt. So like, that could have been me. Yeah. Matt's story could have been my story. Meaning, I could have died for one, but what I really was thinking is, what would happen to me if my husband died? At the time, I was a stay-at-home mom with little kids, just like my friend Trisha, his wife. And that thought really scared me, because when we got married, we decided that I would be a stay-at-home mom and my husband would work, and that was the arrangement we had come together as a family to make. Right. And it worked just fine, but until that moment, the risk wasn't really real. And so a few years later, with kind of this in mind, I thought I need to develop a skill set. Like, I still want to stay home with my kids, but I need to develop a skill set, so if anything, God forbid, would happen to my husband, that I would be able to provide for our kids. And so, kind of the other moment was, I was working a dead-end job just around my husband's schedule at nights in a hotel, and it was awful. Like, the hotel was awful, the management was awful, the hours were awful, the bed they had me sleep in was hard. Like, it was just no fun. Oh yeah. And I thought, anything's going to be better than this. And I had thought about trying to do freelance writing and editing for a long time, and that was like awful enough that I'm like, I gotta at least try this. I gotta at least throw some spaghetti at the wall, see if it works, because I don't want to do this anymore. Right.
So what led you then with, you said you went on to the freelance writing, but then what led you to the discovery of a wider path, finding podcasting, finding financial...
The podcast kind of grew out of that a little bit, because I kind of made a 5-year plan for myself, because I still had little ones at the time, so I didn't want to commit full time, and I wanted to be able to stay home. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to start with freelancing. I'm going to start with writing in the personal finance space, get my name out there, get my foot in the door. And then after a couple years that I've done this, the original thought was a blog, which I still may probably do in conjunction with the podcast. But I was also a podcast junkie. Like, once you fall down the personal finance rabbit hole, you consume and consume and consume this content. And for me as a mom, I found myself listening to a lot of podcasts, because like, to sit down and read something on a screen or in a book is a lot harder, but while I'm driving kids someplace or doing the laundry or doing the dishes, I can listen to a podcast pretty easily. So that was kind of an outgrowth of that. And I also saw a lot of great personal finance content, but a lot of it that didn't make a whole lot of sense for me as a stay-at-home mom. Like, there was just, like, I remember this one podcast episode, that was talking about productivity and how to like make your life more productive, and the host suggested sleeping 1 less hour per night. I was like, are you insane? You've clearly never nurtured a child in the middle of the night. This is not pertinent to my life. And I thought, I'm not seeing anything in this space for a family with 1 income and a gaggle of kids, which is what I have. And so I thought, well, I can be that. So that's kind of how the podcast grew out of the freelance.
So being a wife, being a mom to 5, and then also taking on this journey to be a freelancer and to share information to help others be as successful as yourself. How did you find the ability, like with time, energy, emotions, to be able to grapple or to handle all these things that you juggle?
It's a continual struggle, to be perfectly honest, and it's probably the limiting factor in my growth, is just all the balls I have in the air right now. And I've kind of learned, because I'm tempted sometimes to look at other people and be jealous of the progress or the speed of progress that they make. But I realized, like, okay, and I kind of go back to my why and my original plan for myself and my family is like, being with my children is important to me. It's a core value of mine, and I don't ever, I mean, it's a common adage almost, ad nauseum, but I don't get that time back.
Right.
I can always go on and do something later, but I can't go back to my children's childhood and be there. And so I've kind of given myself some grace a little bit that they are going to cost me some time. They're going to cost me some progress, but I'm okay with that trade-off. I'm okay with going at a slower pace of progress in order to align my career with my values.
Right. No, that's cool that you're able to figure out your priorities and then stick to them, like using the words that we use on this channel, core values, your vision, things like that help keep people on their track to be successful and still take care of the ones who need it the most.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, because you can't really outsource taking care of your family. Well, yeah. So.
I haven't tried that yet. So when you find yourselves in those moments of, I can't do this today, how do you find, or what helps you pick yourself up by your bootstraps?
Diet Coke, sleep. I think part of it is going back to, kind of like we talked about before this, a little bit of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And like, I make sure that, food, the rent is paid, the basics are covered.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, what comes next? And kind of go back to just the simple basics and work from there. I also try to, there are certain blocks of time in my day I've noticed are extremely valuable. Super early morning, I am not an early bird, but I'm married one, and so he's trying real hard to convert me. But when he can get me up, those early morning hours, if need be, can be really valuable because the kids don't want to be up super early. Also, when my kids are at school, I'm finally at the point where everybody's in school now. And while there are still half days and sick days and vacations and things, I try not to do anything but deep work during those hours that I know I'm going to have alone. And so trying to maximize, like, I don't do grocery shopping while my kids are at school. I try to work on my freelancing or podcasting or strategic planning, things that are really hard to do when I'm interrupted by, Mom, I want a drink of water. Mom, sign this permission slip. Mom, I need a Band-Aid. I try to make sure to kind of Tetris my life to optimize it, realizing there's going to be interruptions, there's going to be things that happen that I don't plan, but to try to do what I can to maximize that time. So
how do you feel? How do you feel going into the future as the kids are getting older and your enterprise is starting to grow? How do you see your future coming with challenges or anticipate challenges?
I feel optimistic, and I don't know if that's naively optimistic, but
I like optimism. I like the optimism.
Yeah, and as they've gotten older, they're more self-sustaining, and they will need me less and less. I mean, if you're a parent, that's your ultimate goal, is your kids don't really need you anymore, which is sad, but true. And so I think I'll be able to focus less on, going back to that hierarchy of needs, I will be able to focus less on my children's material needs and just be there emotionally for them, giving me more time to focus on my passion projects, the podcast, and hopefully give more more of myself to an audience and teaching them about finance and helping other moms, being that voice that I wish was there for me a little bit, like helping 5 years ago me, 10 years ago me, and help those people go through those struggles. So maybe it's a little easier for them than it was for me.
What was the greatest thing that you learned during this journey that just allowed you to be pretty much organized and optimistic and resilient?
Well, I'm not organized, so I've learned that that's a weakness I have that I want to work on. But probably slow progress is still progress, and not to get down on myself for what I haven't done yet. But there's a part in the movie Frozen 2 that I really like, and it's after Anna thinks Elsa dies, and she's in this, like, I get teary-eyed just thinking about it, because I have sisters that I love. But in that moment where Anna's in this like deep grief moment, she's lost her only living family member. She gets up. I'm sorry, I'm a crier. I apologize.
No worries.
Can't turn it off.
I don't want you.
But she gets up and she thinks about the next right thing. And so that's one thing I've tried to do both in my family and in my business, is to not focus on 5 years from now, not focus on all the things I'm not doing, but to concentrate on the next right thing.
Nice, beautiful. As we start concluding this, it's what would you say to your 16-year-old self if you had a chance to tell yourself something to be ready for this adventure?
Don't major in linguistics. No, I had a wonderful major. It's fascinating. It's fairly useless, but that's one of my few regrets in life, and even that it put some things in motion that I'm glad happened. So, but as far as telling my 16-year-old self things about life and progress, I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Like that's what my mom sacrificed a lot to give that to me and my siblings, and I wanted that for my kids. But I wish I could go back and tell myself that a stay-at-home mom isn't a career choice, it's a phase in life. Because eventually your kids are going to be grown and flown someday, and it's a relationship. Like motherhood's a relationship, fatherhood's a relationship, and relationships are, some of the number one things in life. But relationships and career are two completely different facets of your life. And so I wish I would have thought a little harder. And again, I don't know how many choices other than the linguistics major that I would really change about the way I lived my life, but my perspective on it, I think I would have planned better to say, okay, I want my relationships to look this way. How can I plan my career around my relationships so that I didn't neglect this part of my life? And neglect's probably the wrong word. I didn't just let this part of my life happen. Like, I'm happy the way it happens. I love freelance writing. It's great. I'm excited to be a podcaster. But I just wish I would have done that a little more intentionally when I was younger.
Excellent. So how can the audience, how can the viewers get a hold of you to reach out to you and be able to get your perspective, or have you help them?
Best way to find me is probably on Instagram, Mama's Money Map. It's MAMAN. Mama's Money Map on Instagram. And if you'd like to listen to the podcast, that would be amazing. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically anywhere you listen to a podcast, it should be there. It's an orange logo with a compass.
Jenni, thank you so much for being part of this show.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Eric. It's been delightful.
Thank you.